My name's Jude Christian and I am the director of this project. I wear a lot of different hats within theatre and live performance. So I'm predominantly a director. I work a lot with new writing, either script-based new writing or projects that come out of a more sort of devised collaborative process. I also write a little bit as well. And so again, working usually collaboratively to create projects from scratch, and quite often I get excited by projects that are kind of research-led. And so either from archive or from sort of ongoing research projects. This week, me and a group of my fellow freelance theatre makers are coming together with the research team from King's College. It's an early stage R&D where we're starting to engage with the material that's been gathered through this research project and to think about, I guess, the dramatic potential of that material, but very specifically how theatre can be a useful tool in communicating the results of the study, I guess advocating for some of the participants, and because theatre is such a live art form, and because theatre allows you to bring a version of reality into a room in a constructed way that almost makes it feel realer than real, I think what we're trying to do this week is to get to the heart of who these women are, who these mothers are, what they need, what the people that they encounter through their pregnancy and motherhood journey can offer them. And we're trying to find ways to say that on stage in a way that feels really, hopefully, evocative and entertaining and engaging, that feels really empathetic and feels really human. The process has been brilliantly intense. I think we all feel really emotionally connected to the material in very, very different ways. I think there are some people in the room who are finding that very, very specific issues or stories chime with them, and that's something that obviously is always really exciting when you're making a piece of work. The aims of the study feel incredibly clear, and I think we all really share a sense of passion and purpose, and hopefully one that feels very generously connected to the rest of society about how we can hopefully work with the research team to present these findings in a way that allow everybody to sit down and look at what's been said through the study, the way that some people's journeys go, and to try and gently prompt change. And as a theatre maker who makes work in a variety of settings for a variety of purposes, it feels really exciting to work on something that has such an incredibly clear and incredibly urgent social purpose. I think this week feels really crucial because I think it allows, for me as a creative, it allows that time firstly with the research team to really get inside the amazing amount of resource that they've brought out of the study. They've so articulately put across in their reports what their conclusions are, what their suggestions are, but there's something really brilliant about getting the detail and the kind of heat and drive that sits within that study, but also kind of, that isn't necessarily apparent when you're seeing something in document form or in presentation form. And I guess for me, that then informs what I would go forward and try and create. Equally, also, it's really important, I think, to have that time with actors exploring material, because actors have such a brilliant way of, obviously, they can show you how something is going to manifest on stage. They can create very quickly, as can, a sound designer and other members of the creative team, a sort of a miniature version or a kind of scrappy version of what it's going to feel like if we put these words or these sentiments or these situations in front of an audience live, where we're all breathing the same air as each other. So it feels like a really fundamental piece of groundwork. I think from this, they would then go away, have a bit of time, delve more deeply into the material and try and construct something that obviously has my own input, my own thought process, my own instincts about how the dramatic form can serve this material and this purpose, but also is like deeply informed. I think it's so important as a maker, as I think, it has been for the research team as well, to really engage your own brain in what you're seeing and how you receive it, but also to sense check with other people. And obviously the brilliant thing about working with Outside Edge is there's also access to a wide amount of expertise within the team. It might also be that service users from the company are going to come in and visit. And so we get that real, as well as having this brilliant archive of interviews, in this case from mothers who were had a very, very long engagement process with the research project, we also then have visiting practitioners, visitors to the room who are going to bring in their own lived experience as well. So this week in the room, we've got Polly, Louise and Emma from the research team, led by Kings. We've got 3 brilliant actors, Eve, Bianca and Lucy, and a sound designer, Beth, as well as Naomi and Matt from Outside Edge. So essentially, there are a lot of creative brains in that space, but everyone kind of has their own areas of expertise. And I think what's nice about, again, having Outside Edge is that real creative instinct, like they are a theatre making company, so they really understand the form that we're working in, but also because of the people that they work with, they're able to bring that real, very data supported and very real life supported sort of anecdotal evidence that backs up the things that we're saying. And hopefully who we're also going to be able to bring into the room towards the end of the week as service users who work with Outside Edge, who again would be able to come in as a bit of an outside eye, but a supportive friend voice within that process. So it feels like a really robust room. For me, it's like a really rare treat to be able to work with researchers. So quite often when I've worked on, for example, when I've worked on new writing at places like the Royal Court, or the Everyman or the Royal Exchange, I as a director have come in at a point of contact where a writer might have done all of their own research, but that writer becomes the authority in the room. And that's great, and I really trust that writer. But there's something really brilliant about, I guess, meeting the people who are a step earlier in that process, who don't make theatre for a living, are engaged with what theatre can do as an art form that aligns with the objectives of the way that they're already working, but they just have these vast swathes of experience that come from years and years and years and years of working in the field, researching a particular topic, from a sort of academic standpoint, from a information gathering standpoint, and also they have this huge network of colleagues that they can tap as well. It does feel a little bit overwhelming sometimes, but I think that's the purpose of the R&D. It's why it feels really held in the room. When you're researching a piece of work for yourself as a theatre maker, you feel like the entirety of the world and the entirety of the internet are available for you to find out more about your chosen subject. And that, again, can be exciting and also quite limiting or confusing. There's something really brilliant about having humans in the room who will open up vast amounts of knowledge for you, but they're also humans who understand how to communicate with you, and who bring their own brilliant brains. So you're not relying on your ability to think in advance how to ask questions that you didn't even know existed. You're speaking to somebody who can go, oh, this thing that you've mentioned makes me think about something that you didn't even know happened, and they can unlock a whole area of stuff for you. It's really fun because it's really human. There's like a natural thing that happens when you spend a lot of time in a room together with not that many people, where there are times when you're all really, really focused on an activity, and actually sometimes the kind of the chat or the information swapping or the idea swapping that happens around that, the kind of like beginnings and ends of tea breaks, ends up informing the nature of the piece. So for example, in this case, we've talked about the need for the subject matter not to be handled in like too somber a way. And I think there's something about having that human connection and that kind of like workplace levity in the room that means that it makes that all feel really tangible. It makes it easier to make a piece of work that feels like it's about the truth of human interactions, because we're getting that human interaction time together in a way that, again, I think from Zoom calls or emails or everybody individually working, we wouldn't get. So it's very precious time, and I'm going to be very sad when it is. We've been doing a bit of a sort of splodgy process so far, because I think, differently to other pieces of theatre I've made before, and particularly to other pieces of devised work, not only is the subject heading really clear and such a wealth of information already, but also I think for the research team there is a very clear sense of objective. And so that's really exciting, because I think sometimes as a theatre maker you have a lot of material and you're going, what is the actual story that we want to tell? Here it's liberating, because I think there is already a clear idea of what the story is that we want to tell, and also it feels really valuable because we can already invest in that story. We understand why it's important to tell that story. So the big question that we're grappling with is how. So for me as a theatre maker who loves to play with form, this is delightful because we're just dotting around, and there's an element of putting the material through different forms and seeing how it feels. And because, again, we have the researchers in the room, we get this very immediate feedback process. So for me, Beth, the sound designer, the three actors, we can create a scratch version of, you know, a piece of quite classic headphone verbatim, or a piece of quite freewheeling stream of consciousness writing, or a very hypernaturalistic improv. We can throw it together because we have robust research sitting behind it, and then we can put it in front of a team who can instantly react and tell us how it feels, and we can dissect as a group what we think the pros and cons are of presenting the work in that way. So yeah, it's a sort of like fun theatre workout, as well as feeling like it's really constructive in terms of process.